In this video, I'll be attempting to name a player who has played for Sunderland and every team in the 92. The 92 covers the top 4 divisions of English football, and this will really put my ball knowledge to the test. This video was all done without Transfermarkt, without Wikipedia, without Googling things, just seeing what I could come up with off the top of my head. Could I have cheated? Yes, I suppose so. You'll just have to trust that I didn't, and I hope you enjoy. Let's just get straight into it. I've got a list of the 92 in front of me, and I'll go through them one by one, see if I can name a player who's played for that team, and also my beloved Sunderland AFC. We'll start with the Premier League and go in alphabetical order, starting with Arsenal. There's a few that come to mind. The obvious one is obviously Granit Xhaka, who's just joined Sunderland. We'll go with a bit more of a fruity one, I think. We'll go with Nicholas Bentner. Next we've got Aston Villa. The first one that comes to mind is Darren Bent, who left Sunderland in slightly less than ideal circumstances, but was a hell of a striker on his day. Next we've got Bournemouth. We'll go with Chris Mepham, who was on loan at Sunderland from Bournemouth last season. Very good Championship centre-back. Next we've got Brentford. We'll go with little Alex Pritchard, played for Brentford ages ago and recently for Sunderland. Brighton and Hove Albion next, and we'll go with Tommy Watson, who was the hero of the playoff final that got Sunderland back to the Premier League, of course, before moving to Brighton. Burnley, we'll go with Phil Bardsley, is the only player I can think of. I'm sure there's a few more, but the only one I can think of is Phil Bardsley. Chelsea, and the first player who comes to mind is a player called Papi Djilobodji. He played for us when we were in the Premier League last time round, all those years ago. And he actually ended up getting sacked from Sunderland. Seriously, look it up. He got fired from Sunderland AFC. Crystal Palace next. The only one I can think of is Patrick Van Aanholt, who I also think played for Chelsea, the last team we just did. Again, I'm sure there's a few more, but I can only think of PVA, like the glue. Next up, we have Everton, obviously in their nice shiny new stadium this season. We'll go with Jordan Pickford. Next up, we've got Fulham. I'm really struggling to think of a player for Fulham. The only one I can think of is David Healy, who really wasn't very good for Sunderland. And the only reason I can think of him is because I can remember a Match Attacks card that I had with David Healy on, I think in his Fulham kit. I know he played for Sunderland, obviously. So we'll go with David Healy for Fulham. Leeds United now. We'll go with Niall Huggins, who is currently at Sunderland, or albeit he's out on loan, but he's a former Leeds player. Liverpool next, and there's a few. Obviously, there's Jordan Henderson. I'm going to save him in case I can't think of anyone else for Coventry, though. We'll go with Simon Mignolet, I think, for Liverpool. Next, we've got Manchester City. There's obviously a notorious one whose name I'm not going to mention in this video. We'll go with Jack Rodwell instead, who again left Sunderland on quite bad terms. That is perhaps a slight theme of our last stint in the Premier League. Next, we've got Manchester United. There's been quite a few who've played for Man United and Sunderland over the years. John O'Shea, Wes Brown. Even people like Darren Gibson, but we'll go with Adnan Januzaj, who spent a season on loan to Sunderland from Manchester United. Next we've got that lot up the road, Newcastle United. Again, I can think of quite a few off the top of my head. Titus Bramble, DeAndre Yedlin, Shay Given, Andy Cole. We'll go with Shay Given. I think people forget that he had a brief spell at Sunderland. Obviously, quite a legendary goalkeeper for Newcastle United. Nottingham Forest next, and the first name that springs to mind is one that would have worked for the last team as well, that being Newcastle. That is Jack Colback, who very controversially left Sunderland and went straight to Newcastle, which is very unusual. Tottenham Hotspur next, another team in a relatively new, big, shiny stadium, just like Everton. For Tottenham Hotspur, we'll go with little Jermaine Defoe. Again, what a fantastic striker, up there with the most goals in the Premier League. You know, he's in the top 10 or so, I think. Brilliant player on his day. West Ham next. The first player who's come to mind for me is a player whose surname you've definitely heard of, even if you haven't heard of this player himself. We'll go with Anton Ferdinand, who's obviously the younger brother of the more famous and more successful Rio. Wolverhampton Wanderers are our last team in the Premier League, and we'll go with Jody Craddock. The reason I can think of Jody Craddock is because he had a testimonial game, and people like Niall Quinn, like, you know, obviously a Sunderland legend, played in that game. And obviously it was Wolves v Sunderland because Jody Craddock played for both teams. I think that's quite an obscure one, to be honest with you. But yeah, that rounds off the Premier League. Easy as that. 20 out of 20. I almost forgot, in the Premier League, I didn't say Sunderland. I did 19 teams and didn't say Sunderland. Who's a player who's played for Sunderland and Sunderland? How the hell am I going to do this category? I'll tell you what, let's do a player who's played for only Sunderland and a player who's played for Sunderland on 2 occasions. So a player who's played for only Sunderland at the time of me speaking, which is September 2025, is Chris Rigg. And a player who has unfortunately played for Sunderland twice, I say unfortunately because he was rubbish on both occasions, is Danny Graham. And that is a fitting way to round off the Premier League. On to the Championship now. 24 teams in the Championship. Can we get another perfect league? Starting with Birmingham City, we'll go with Jobe Bellingham, obviously the younger brother of Jude, who has followed his path and also gone to Borussia Dortmund. Next up, we've got Blackburn Rovers. We'll go with Danny Bart, I think. I know that's not quite how you spell his surname, but I think that's how you pronounce it. Next up, we have the red side of Bristol with Bristol City, and we'll go with another centre-back who was very decent in the Championship and League One for us, and that is Bailey Wright. Next up, Charlton Athletic, who have been a thorn in the backside of Sunderland in more than one playoff final, as I'm sure Charlton and Sunderland fans are both aware. For Charlton, we'll go with Aidan McGeady, which it was a weird one. It was a Phil Parkinson era falling out that meant Aidan McGeady spent, I think, half a season on loan at Charlton, which was a weird move and an unpopular move with Sunderland fans. Coventry City next. We'll go with the player I mentioned earlier, which is Jordan Henderson. There's a few others, but I want to save 1 or 2 of them for lower leagues, I think. I can think of Jordan Willis, for example, but I want him for Northampton. So we'll go with Jordan Henderson, who spent time on loan at Coventry from Sunderland as a youngster. Next up, we have Derby County. We'll go with little Paddy Roberts, who again is still at Sunderland, albeit on loan to another Championship team, Birmingham. I'm pretty sure Paddy Roberts was on loan at Derby from Man City at one point, or one of several loans he went on. Next up we have Hull, and I think I'll go with David Myler for this one. Remember that time he had a scrap with Alan Pardew? Good times. Next up we have Ipswich Town, and we'll go with a player who is still currently at Ipswich, and that is Jack Clark. Next up we have freshly relegated Leicester City. We'll go with Johnny Evans, who played for Sunderland on loan from Manchester United. Obviously spent quite a long time at Leicester. I think he was part of their team that won the Premier League. That might be wrong. But yeah, Leicester City, Johnny Evans. Middlesbrough are our next team in the Championship. And again, there's been quite a few over the years. I can think of Lee Cattermole, Duncan Watmore. There's definitely been a few others that I can't think of right now. But we'll go with Lee Barry Cattermole for this one. Millwall next. We'll go with the player I've just mentioned. We'll go with Duncan Watmore. On to Norwich City. We'll go with another centre-back, Callum Doyle. He spent time on loan at Sunderland from Man City when we were in League One. I can't remember if he went to Norwich permanently or if it was another loan. But he was a decent player for us in League One. So yeah, we'll go with him for Norwich City. Next up we have Oxford United, who I think are the trickiest one in the Championship, and I can only think of one player, and that's a player called Alex Gorin. I'm pretty sure he was a youngster at Sunderland. I don't know if he ever actually played for the first team. Yeah, that Oxford's a really tricky one. I struggled thinking of one for this one, so we'll go with Alex Gorin. I'm pleased I could get at least one. Portsmouth next. For the record, one of my favourite stadiums in the entire country, Fratton Park, is an absolutely gorgeous football stadium. I highly recommend a visit if you've never been. But for Portsmouth, we'll go with Adil Aushish, which almost certainly isn't how you pronounce it, but he spent time on loan at Portsmouth from Sunderland last season, I think. Preston North End now. Again, this is a player who is currently at Sunderland but out on loan to a different team in the Championship. We'll go with Alan Brown, who I think he spent like 8, 9, 10 years at Preston. He was there for a hell of a long time before he left and joined Sunderland. QPR, Queen's Park Rangers next. Another team where I have a real soft spot for their stadium. It's a lovely old school football stadium. Jack Colback would have worked for this one, but we've already said him. So I can think of Jake Clark-Salter, who played for us in the season we got relegated from the Championship. He was rubbish in a Sunderland shirt. I think the most notable thing he did was fold Adama Traore in half when Traore was at Middlesbrough. I genuinely think that was the highlight of Jake Clark-Salter's Sunderland career. Next up we go into Sheffield, starting with Sheffield United, obviously the team that we've just beaten in the playoff final. We'll go with Callum McFadzean. Again, I think that's how you pronounce his surname. Played for Sunderland very briefly under the Phil Parkinson era. I actually think he might have come to Sheffield United's youth academy. That might be wrong. Yeah, not a great player at Sunderland, so we'll say no more about him and move straight on to Sheffield Wednesday. And the only player I can think of is goalkeeper Kieran Westwood. Again, there's probably some other obvious ones that I've missed, but he's the only one that springs to mind immediately. Next up we have Southampton. This one thankfully is a lot easier. Current Southampton striker Ross Stewart was signed directly from Sunderland a few years ago. Next up we have Stoke City, another team who wear red and white stripes of course. And we'll go with a name that I think quite a lot of you will have heard of, that being Rory Delap, that fella who could throw the ball about 6 miles. He actually played for Sunderland before he played for Stoke. We just didn't work out he could throw the ball ridiculously far, which feels like a missed opportunity. Next up we have Swansea City. I'm going to go with a player called Ki Sung-young, South Korean player if I'm not mistaken. He played for us on loan, I think from Swansea, the year we got to the League Cup final. Really good player. Almost finished with the Championship. We're into the W's, starting with Watford. We'll go with Kostel Pantilimon, that Romanian goalkeeper. Remember him? He was about 11 foot tall. Next up, West Bromwich Albion. We'll go with Josh Maja, who again was a striker for us in the League One days. He left and went to France, Bordeaux, I think. He spent some time in England. He played for Fulham as well. But yeah, he's a really clinical striker. I liked him a lot. So yeah, Josh Maja for West Brom. And last but not least, in the Championship, we have freshly promoted Hollywood Wrexham. And they actually have a few players on their books at the moment who are former Sunderland players. One of the more notable ones, arguably, is James McLean, who had a spell at Sunderland probably over 10 years ago now. And just like that, we've done the Championship. That's 24 out of 24 by my count. That's pretty good going. But I think things are probably going to get a little trickier as we drop down to League One and League Two. But let's see how we get on. AFC Wimbledon are the first team in League One alphabetically. And we'll go with goalkeeper Alex Bass. He spent time at Wimbledon on loan from Sunderland. The most notable thing he did for Sunderland was score against Newcastle in like an under-21 game at St James's Park, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because it was a bad thing for him, I guess, because he was playing with the under-21s rather than the first team squad. But if you're going to play with the under-21s, you might as well score a last-minute winner away at Newcastle, right? Fair play to him. Next up we have Barnsley. We'll go with Callum Styles, which is perhaps the most British-sounding Hungarian international footballer in the entire world. Next up we have Blackpool. We'll go with Elliot Embleton. He spent time at Blackpool, again on loan from Sunderland. I actually think he won promotion with Blackpool from League One and then came back to us after his loan and then got promoted with us as well. So he has multiple promotions from League One under his belt, which is a pretty obscure stat, I suppose. But yeah, Elliot Embleton for Blackpool. Next up we'll go with Bolton Wanderers. This is quite an old one actually that I've thought of. Remember Jan Kirchhoff? German defensive midfielder. He played for us briefly in the Premier League. I'm pretty sure he played for Bolton briefly as well. Bradford City now, who are the team we played when we set the League One attendance record at the Stadium of Light. We'll go for current Bradford City player, former Sunderland captain, and excellently named Max Power. Next we have Burton Albion, and I'm having a little bit of a wobble here because I can think of 2 players who I've already said, which is frustrating because now I can't think of a fresh one. Jordan Pickford had a loan at Burton when he was a youngster at Sunderland, and Darren Bent played for Burton because he scored the goal that sent us down from the Championship. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Jordan Pickford for Burton Albion because he played on loan there from Sunderland, and I'll zing off a fresh one for Everton. In fact, I'll give you 2 just for the hell of it. We'll go with Brian Oviedo, and we'll go for Stephen Pienaar. There you go. Sins repented for. Next up, we have Cardiff City, and we'll go with Michael Chopra, who, now I mention it, is another one who would have worked for Sunderland and Newcastle. Doncaster Rovers next. We'll go with Luke Molyneux. I think is still at Doncaster Rovers. Certainly was very recently. He was one of our, he was a decent enough youngster at Sunderland. Never got a chance in the first team, unfortunately. But I kind of noticed him doing well, and he seemed really popular at Doncaster Rovers. So fair play to him. Next up, we have Exeter City, a team that play at St James's Park, but not that one. I actually am firing a blank here. I think Exeter are going to be my first skip, which is frustrating, but it is what it is. Maybe it'll come to me as I'm rambling about some other team, but for now we're gonna skip Exeter City. Next up we have Huddersfield Town. We'll go with Lyndon Gooch, who is currently at Huddersfield, if I'm not mistaken. Left Sunderland after a long time at the club a few years ago. Went to Stoke for a few years, and now he's at Huddersfield. Lincoln City, no they're not. Leyton Orient are next, and this is a really weird one. There was a fullback called Andre Dossena, who's Italian. He was signed by Sunderland in that weird era where we had like a guy called De Fanti doing the transfers, and I think it was around when Paolo Di Canio was manager. And Andre Dossena came from somewhere in Italy, really out the blue, really weird transfer. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure if it was directly after us or a little while after, he played for Leyton Orient briefly, which feels like a really obscure answer, I'm going to be honest with you. Next up we have Lincoln City. We'll go with Chris Maguire, who has played for quite a few teams in the lower divisions. While at Lincoln City, he came to the Stadium of Light and scored a hat-trick for Lincoln City. And I think he only scored a couple of other goals. I think he scored something like 5 goals for Lincoln City, and 3 of them were against Sunderland at the Stadium of Light, which is just him all over, isn't it? If you know Chris Maguire, he's that sort of player. Luton Town next, fresh from their back-to-back relegations. As a Sunderland fan, I know all too well about them. We'll go with Kazenga Luar for Luton Town, who again, I've said this before, I'll probably say it again, he played for Sunderland briefly and was rubbish. Next up we have Mansfield Town, and I think League One has got me again here. I can't think of a player who's played for Sunderland and Mansfield Town, unfortunately. If it comes to me, I'll say, but that's going to be our second skip for League One, unfortunately. Northampton Town come next, and I've already mentioned this player as a former Coventry player, Jordan Willis, who was a decent enough player for us in League One, but was injured a lot, which was a shame for him. Peterborough United next. We'll go with goalkeeper Ben Anik. That's going back a long way for his spell at Sunderland. He was a youngster at Sunderland and left for Tottenham Hotspur, if I recall correctly. But I think he was at Peterborough United as more of a senior player in the past few years. Next up we have Plymouth Argyle, a hell of an away day for Sunderland AFC, obviously, when we shared a division with them. We'll go with Ballymumba, who was a youngster we sold when Stuart Donald, etc. owned the club. I think we sold Ballymumba for about 50 pence. It was a strange transfer. He wasn't really given a chance in the first team at Sunderland, but that's just how it goes sometimes, right? Next up we've got Port Vale. But I'm struggling to think of one for Port Vale as well. So I think Port Vale are going to be our third skip in League One, unfortunately. Next up we have Reading. I can think of Vito Minone, John O'Shea. There was a player, I think his name was Ovi Ejaria. He had a loan spell at us. I think a loan spell at Reading as well. But we'll go with the pick of the bunch in a Sunderland shirt of those three, which was Vito Minone. Next, we've got Rotherham United, and we'll go with the player who was at Rotherham fairly recently. I've no idea if he still is. That's Reece James, not the Chelsea one, obviously. A different Reece James, who was at Sunderland very briefly in the League One days. Next up, we have Stevenage. And again, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, so I think Stevenage is going to be our fourth skip in League One, unfortunately. Next we have Stockport County. Again, I know this player was at Stockport recently. I don't know if he still is. Maybe. That's going to be Jack Diamond. Our penultimate team in League One is Wigan Athletic, who were often up there with us when we were in League One. There's quite a few over the years. A few I've mentioned already. Lee Catamol, for example. But we'll go with Titus Bramble. Last but not least in League One is Wycombe Wanderers, the team we beat in a League One playoff final to finally escape League One. And we'll go with fan favourite at Sunderland, Luke O'Nien. And just like that, we're done with League One. A little more wobbly than the first two leagues. But by my count, we've got 20 out of 24 there, with Exeter, Mansfield, Port Vale and Stevenage being skipped. Our final league in the 92, of course, is League 2. In theory, this should be the most difficult one, but we'll see how we get on. We skipped 4 in League 1. Let's see if we can do any better down in League 2. And we'll get straight into it with Accrington Stanley. Who are they? Exactly. We'll go with Adji Elise, who is still at Sunderland. Pretty sure it was a loan from West Ham when he was a younger player at Accrington Stanley. Next up we have Barnet, and the first player I can think of when I mention Barnet is Edgar Davids in that number 1 shirt with his goggles on as player manager, which isn't relevant for this, but it's exactly what springs to mind when I say the word Barnet. Unfortunately for me, I can't think of a player who's played for Sunderland and Barnet, so I'm going to skip them. Next in League 2 we have Barrow, and I can think of a player called Will Harris, who was a youngster at Sunderland a few years ago who had a loan at Barrow. And I think the reason I remember this is because I remember seeing it announced and thinking, I wonder if anyone's actually played for Sunderland and Barrow before. And I don't think they have. I have no idea what he's doing now. I don't know if he's still at Barrow. I don't know how long he was at Barrow. But I know he had a loan at Barrow from Sunderland. Couldn't tell you anything else about him, but it's funny that things just stay in your brain, eh? So for Barrow, Will Harris. Next up, we are finally in the blue side of Bristol with Bristol Rovers, and we'll go with Jack Baldwin as a player that's played for both. Bromley are next. What's with all the B teams in League 2? I can't think of anyone who's played for Sunderland and Bromley, so we'll give Bromley a skip as well, unfortunately. Next, we've got Cambridge United. My only experience of Cambridge United is watching Sunderland win in absolutely torrential rain when we were down in League One. But the player for Cambridge I'm thinking of is similar to Alex Bass, a goalkeeper who basically did nothing in a Sunderland shirt and then had a few loans out and then left. And that's going to be Nathan Bishop. Cheltenham Town are next. And the only player I can think of who's played for Sunderland and Cheltenham Town is Carl Winchester. Again, my only experience of Cambridge is watching us lose there midweek, and Jermaine Defoe played when he had that second spell at Sunderland. Strange times. Next up we've got Colchester United, and I'm pretty sure Tom Flanagan has just joined Colchester United, so he's going to be my pick. Crawley Town next, and we'll go with another centre-back who played for Sunderland in League 1. That's going to be Joel Lynch. He was absolutely huge. That's my only memory of him. Next up, we've got Crewe Alexandra. We'll go with, I'm pretty sure Billy Jones played for Crewe for like a year or something at the end of his career. He was actually at Sunderland for a long time, or certainly a few years in the Premier League. Billy Jones for Crewe Alexandra. Next up we've got Fleetwood Town, and this is a player who is still at Sunderland, although I can't imagine he'll be seeing a lot of football in the Premier League, and that is Jay Matete. Gillingham are next, and we'll go with Bradley Dack, who was at Sunderland very briefly under Tony Mowbray and didn't really do anything in a Sunderland shirt, to be honest. Grimsby Town are next, and we'll go with Denver Hume, who actually, now I mention it out loud, I think he is at Fleetwood currently, so he would have also worked for Fleetwood, but that's by the by. Grimsby Town, Denver Hume. Harrogate Town are next, and actually, funnily enough, I have two names in my head for Harrogate Town, which is such a weird team to have two names for. But I've got John Stead, who played for Harrogate towards the end of his career, and John McLaughlin, the goalkeeper. I'm almost certain he played for Harrogate Town as well. I'm not 100% with John McLaughlin, so we'll go with John Stead, because I know he definitely played for Sunderland and Harrogate. I just realised I completely missed Chesterfield. I'm so sorry, any Chesterfield fans that are watching, the singular Chesterfield fan that is watching, please accept my humble apologies. For Chesterfield and Sunderland, we'll go with Will Grigg, who was quite famously rubbish in a Sunderland shirt. Next up alphabetically, after our little detour back to C, we have MK Dons. Funnily enough, Will Grigg would work for MK Dons, but we'll go with Ethan Robson instead. Newport County are next with our last flurry into Wales. Unfortunately, it's going to be an unsuccessful flurry into Wales because I cannot think of a player who's played for Sunderland and Newport County. Next up, we have Notts County. I'm going to go for another goalkeeper. I feel like I've said a lot of goalkeepers. Goalkeeper count, below, bang, wow, what a lot of goalkeepers. We'll go for Anthony Patterson, who is, again, currently at Sunderland and had a loan spell at Notts County a few years ago. I actually think there was a funny situation where he went to Notts County on loan, and then we recalled him, and then we sent him back, I think because of an injury to someone. It felt like we were messing him around a little bit. We're getting into the latter stages of League 2 now, and for Oldham Athletic, we'll go with Corey Evans, obviously the brother of Johnny Evans, who was mentioned earlier in this video, who played for Oldham as they got promoted from the National League last year. Next up, we have Salford City. Two players are in my head. There's Darren Gibson, and there's Donald Love. And I think we'll go with Donald Love because he didn't get drunk and crash his car on the streets of Sunderland. Next up is Shrewsbury Town. There was a funny spell where Shrewsbury Town had like 3 or 4 former Sunderland players all at the same time. We'll go with Aidan O'Brien of those lot. Next up we have Swindon Town. And this is one I can't think of a player for. I can think of Paolo Di Canio, who managed both teams, but that's not the game we're playing. And I'm surprised I can't think of one for Swindon. It feels like there's one out there. Let me know who I've missed. If it's obvious, feel free to call me an idiot. Tranmere Rovers next, and we'll go with Josh Hawkes. I'm pretty sure he went on loan to Tranmere from Sunderland and then signed permanently. I don't know if he's still there, but he seemed pretty popular at Tranmere last time I checked. Last but not least, in League 2, we have Walsall, and we'll go with George Dobson to round off the 92. And just like that, we finished League 2 and ultimately the entire 92. For League 2, we actually got the exact same amount as we did for League 1, 20 out of 24, with Barnet, Bromley, Newport County and Swindon Town being the only ones that were skipped. For the entire 92, we got 84 out of 92, with all 20 from the Premier League, all 20 from the Championship, 20 from League 1 and 20 from League 2. Just the 8 teams skipped. Not too bad, if I may say so myself. Could you have done any better for the team you support? Did I miss anyone really obvious? Let me know down in the comments below, and I hope to see you next time.